Proceeds to sick bay. The doctor should look at it as soon as possible.
It is the way in which we propagate our species. Please demonstrate how this is accomplished. So, what's next? I don't know.
Welcome to Casual Track, a Star Trek recap and ranking podcast, brought to you by Nerd and Ty and your murderous former life. Yes, yours, Ben. I'm Charlie Etheridge Nunn. I'm a writer and a Hannibal fan.
I'm Ezri Lobato, a science fiction writer and a fan of The Eternal Champion, because if we're talking past and future lives where you've done many, many terrible things, you might as well go to the source on this one.
Why not? Each episode, we watch stories from 3 different Star Trek shows and rank them on a big list of best to worst. We both love Star Trek, as it's far from our first fandom. This makes us the ultimate objective voices on such a task. This episode, we're covering a donor request from Ben. He's only really seen DS9 and is learning about the other shows from us, which is maybe the best or worst way possible to learn about other Star Treks.
Ben, you poor, beautiful bastard.
So he generously donated to our Ko-fi and asked us to make an episode about everyone's favourite symbiote, Venom.
Wah, wah, wah.
Or alternatively, Dax.
Wow, your joke landed as well as Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, thanks. It's alright. You know, Peter dancing in Spider-Man 3 is very much my aspiration for dancing.
I actually like the goofy dancing in Spider-Man 3, because the way I see it, the symbiote brings out Peter's worst aspects, and it's not that it makes him like a violent or nasty person. It just makes him much more of a fucking toxic nerd than Peter Parker kind of is at times.
He's a nerd who thinks he's really badass, and I've definitely met those nerds.
You know, if Sam Raimi had thought about it, he would have had a scene where Peter is clearly reading Atlas Shrugged.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, so, before we go on, what non-Venom, non-Star Trek thing have you been enjoying since we last spoke?
Well, I have unfortunately been watching a show put out by Amazon. I have been watching Fallout, the TV show based on the video game series of the same name.
Yeah, I'm a couple of episodes in. What are you making of it so far?
I really enjoy it. My wife Rihanna is a huge Fallout fan, so she's really been enjoying it. I like the 3 different narratives, which almost feel like 3 different game paths of an RPG. Like, you have the Vault Dweller, who's very kind of still learning the way around the world and how horrible it's just making her life choices. Then you've got the Brotherhood of Steel pathline, who is trying to be a good person but just keeps doing bad things for the sake of doing good. And then you have the Ghoul, who is basically every single jaded character who... I occasionally have done this when playing games of Fallout when I've been in a bad mood, which is I save my file and then I walk into the nearest settlement and just start shooting to see how long I can survive.
Wow. See, I know people do that, but I've never done that myself. It just feels... I feel too... like, I don't know, it'd feel weird.
The only times anytime I ever play a Grand Theft Auto game, that's all I do. It's like, I don't do any of the missions or quests. I just basically get all the police chasing after me and just seeing how long I can ride this bad boy until they eventually catch me and shoot me.
Wow. I've liked it so far. I knew I was going to enjoy Cole McLaughlin and the Goggins. in it, as they're both good fun. But the two younger protagonists have been entertaining as well. The Vault Dweller was great in Yellow Jackets, and I've no idea if I've seen the Brotherhood guide anything.
She also plays Gwyn in Star Trek Prodigy.
Okay. Huh.
But I've been enjoying it. I feel they pull out 1950s needle drops far too many times an episode because I'm worried that at some point they're gonna have to run out.
Or reuse, because
Yeah.
in Fallout itself, there's only a limited amount of tracks anyway, and that's fine because you're in Fallout. It's just in the background. But yeah, it's been better than it had any right to be, both as a video game adaptation, something made by Nolan and Joy, who I liked a lot of Westworld, but it was very shaky at times. And an Amazon show after seeing Rings of Power's first 3 or 4 episodes, where I love Tolkien, but I get that they threw a massive budget at it, and I couldn't get myself interested or invested in any of Rings of Power.
And if you want to hear us talk about Tolkien, we have an episode in our backlog where we do nothing but. But no, we're only 3 episodes in. It's been a lot of fun. It was nice seeing Benjamin Linus from Lost.
Oh, my sweet little weasel-faced man.
Yep. Or, given that he is, the first part, the good chunk of episode 2, he's with a dog, reminds me of the better parts of the early seasons of Person of Interest. A show which got better when they gave the 2 main characters a dog to round out the team.
I could see that working. I mean, admittedly, also, from everything I've heard about him, maybe get rid of Jim Caviezel or give him as little to do as possible.
Yeah, that has been one of the reasons why I kind of stopped watching the show. Like, the first few seasons I saw, it was a really good Mystery of the Week series, which is sometimes very difficult to, find these days.
Yes.
But Charlie, what have you enjoyed this last few weeks?
Well, I've been going, after seeing a few videos about how Nintendo is closing the kind of online services for the Wii U and the 3DS, it got me remembering that the 3DS was pretty much my number one console from when it came out until maybe when the Switch came out. I was on this device for so long, so much of the time. I remember when I was pretty much alone in the family home with a dog, looking after him during my mother's illness, and I didn't know I was going to be there for more than a day. And I had the 3DS, and that kept me in a lot of company early on. And revisiting the 3DS in its back catalogue, I've been playing Luigi's Mansion 2, Dark Moon, and it's been really good fun. I used to play it occasionally when I was at the laundrettes, waiting for clothes to be done, and going back and starting it from scratch. Like, Luigi, even his idle pose is nervous and terrified, and it's only because of the ghosts he's facing being really, really incompetent that he has even a chance against them. But each mission's been a real joy to do. It's just such a nice little console.
I have a question about the game.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen a bit of Luigi's Mansion 1, but can you press a button? Is there a button which if you press, he just calls out, Mario?
Not in this one, because Mario's not missing in here. He's been conscripted into helping Professor E. Gadd clear out his old mansion and get his stuff. So don't think he wanted to be involved with this, but he keeps getting sucked through the internet into haunted houses, And there's a ghost dog.
Oh,
Yeah, an adorable ghost dog. So yeah, it's been a good fun time.
Fallout has also had an adorable dog.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's a key part, really.
Yeah.
I remember in New Vegas realizing I had quite the squad, having like a sidekick, a weird little floating drone thing, and a dog, and would just be able to wander the wasteland fairly openly, to a point where a flatmate who was kind of my spotter for a bit in first person games was like, "People there," and I was like, "Ash, chill. It's all right. This is New Vegas. People are out now. People are out and about. It's not that kind of isolated death everywhere. Those are just farmers. It's fine. Deathclaws back that way. Look at my scars."
Those guys over there, they're just Elvis impersonators who think he's king.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully they're not cannibals, but as long as I leave them up to what they're doing, and I'll do what I'm doing, should be fine.
This is not an Elvis impersonator cannibal podcast.
Oh shit! Am I in the wrong place?
Yeah, that's the Fallout podcast is next Monday.
Oh, okay, right. Anyway, yeah, we probably ought to get on with some Star Trek. So, our first Dax episode is Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 8, simply titled Dax.
We put some thought into the episode selection this week.
Yeah, we didn't literally just Control F and look for Dax in the list.
Do you think we intended our list to be quite so murdery?
No, it's kind of, we've stumbled into some murders, and not with this one, but with the later two, a kind of secret hidden second theme as well. But yeah, this one comes from all the way back on the 13th of February 1993, with a teleplay by DC Fontana and Peter Allen Fields, the story by Peter Allen Fields, and it was directed by one David Carson. The UK number one hit was the bane of my music teacher in secondary school's life, To Unlimited with No Limit. And then the US had Whitney Houston with I Will Always Love You. And yeah, it's an extremely petty joke, but they were generally known as Too Untalented.
Yeah,
around my ends.
I was listening to this one, and did you happen to catch which what was the the big kind of meme a few months ago, which is the song which sounds like every single mid-90s Europop dance track.
Oh yes, the Planet of the Bass.
The Planet of the Bass. Which I swear describes how Mobile Suit Gundam just kind of works in its like later incarnations perfectly. But when I was listening to this song this morning, I'm just like, man, that song was right about the 90s.
God, wow.
Also, it did make me want to find the old Mortal Kombat theme single, because that was a popular hit back in the day.
Yeah, somehow that was a popular hit. I forgot that was the case. Not something you generally see with anything from a video game.
No. Like, I can't think of any other video game which has had a top ranking pop song.
Yeah.
Apart from, like, I guess the Peaches song from the recent Mario movie, but does that count?
Probably not. I don't know. Anyway,
then the Whitney Houston, the theme from The Bodyguard. I swear, anytime like Whitney Houston or Janet Jackson crop up on our show, my immediate reaction is, wait, this came out in the 90s. This has that like late 80s flavor.
Well, thing is, people go, oh yeah, 90s Nirvana, grunge, Britpop, all of these kind of things. Decades and tastes never happen cleanly with this. Like,
No.
the 80s still lasted a few years into the 90s as far as some musicians. Anyway, back to Dax. Yes, I believe you're timing me as
Yes.
I'm going to be reading us in with this case of Dax and murder.
All right. Okay. You are for the defense. You must sum up the episode Dax in 5 minutes, or else you're going to be extradited.
Extra done?
You will, if you don't do this in 5 minutes, you will be, mate.
Oh no.
All right, and engage.
So, Bashir is trying to flirt with Dax and getting politely ignored. Someone else is watching her from afar, though, and when Julian offers to escort Dax to her place, wink, she rejects him, and he follows anyway. He is proper season 1 creepy Xander Harris kind of vibes here. But hey, Julian catches some kidnappers abducting Jadzia. He attacks him heroically. Is he going to defend her honor and get her free? No, he's beaten up, knocked out, and she's kidnapped. And when he wakes up, he calls it in. Jadzia's comm badge has been left behind, so they don't really know where she is, and the abductors somehow know enough about the station to avoid the cameras. Odo, Cisco, and Kira try locking everything down, but the kidnappers seem to be almost preternaturally good at finding their way through all of the security. They hack their way through, but do end up getting pulled back and brought in. The thing with these abductors, rather than being having charges pressed against them, they're the ones who show off a warrant. The lead abductor, Ilan Tandro, wants to arrest Dax for murder! Ooh, of his dad! That's a conflicting interest, surely, right? And this is a weird way to carry out the law, but put a pin in that. Odo goes into the details of the case. General Odolan Tandro was mates with Curzon Dax, and apparently he betrayed Odolan to Claystron rebels, which led to his death. And Cisco, he loves his old mate Curzon. He doesn't believe any of this. Jadzia, on the other hand, is annoyingly quiet about all of this, to a level where Cisco's questioning their friendship, is demanding an explanation, is getting nothing. Ilon wants to be on his way, and Cisco's found a little snag in the case. He's snuck around here as he's got permission for the Federation to serve a warrant, but not the Bajorans, and this is their station. Given the way they acquired intel about the station and all its security, that makes this a Bajoran interest. It's time for a trial! Yeah! So, as they can only afford so many sets on DS9, Quark is convinced to give up his bar for the trial, lest Odo mess about with building codes. Arbiter Else Renora shows up, already tired of all of this, whatever this is. She's annoyed by everything and wants a quick trial. Cisco, on the other hand, wants to vamp for time, while Odo goes to Claystron to see what's up. Ilon reckons it will be a quick trial, but is asked why did it take 20 years to get pursued? Apparently the details were all sealed off until recently. And Cisco wants to start playing around with this case and how, let's make it a case about how Curzon and Jadzia are different people. And therefore, Jadzia could not have done a murder, even if Curzon did. The Arbiter's annoyed by all of this, but at least we'll let it play out. Odo reports in to say the murder actually made Odolan a famous martyr. He and Curzon were BFFs, and is going to speak to the widow, Anina Tandro. She says, oh yeah, she's certain Dax wasn't involved with this, knows her son's obsessed and on a mission despite never really knowing his dad. She's also shocked that Curzon's dead. Very specifically, pointedly shocked. Ilon reckons that as the accused can remember their crimes, it counts. And Cisco says, no, not if they're someone else's memories. The Arbiter says, could we just sentence for Slug? And no, it would kill her. Julian points out that Jadzia's brainwaves are different to Curzon's, but gets caught in the truth that the Slug's brain is basically the same. Sisko wants to go up on the stand, so he gets Kira to grill him, and he talks about his relationship to Curzon and Jadzia, how they both are, and he's only just getting to know Jadzia. Ilon compares them to salt and water, all mixed up, and Sisko loves this. He senses a cooking analogy and says, wait, no, you can separate salt and water and use the salt for something else. Gotcha there, Ilon. Yeah, solved with cooking. Or at least continued with cooking. During a recess, there's a call from Odo. Progress hasn't been good. As I think we all expected, Curzon was indeed banging the wife. She explains to Odo that Odlan was a piece of shit.
On that revelation.
Oh my god. I need a telenovela Zoom! Oh my god!
Okay, so do you think Odo was just kind of like exploiting his expense account while he's on a holiday at a different place? Like, I'm interviewing the wife. I've gone to some nice museums. I got a tan.
There's no need to we could always have this meeting and interrogation at a lovely restaurant.
Don't check my expense reports.
I mean, it's the nice thing about them being beyond money.
Yeah.
It's like, well, to you, this is nothing. It costs nothing. It may as well be nothing. For them, it's first class rides, top class cuisine all the way.
Like we know Odo doesn't eat, but someone else is footing the bill, so he's gonna make sure he gets his money's worth.
I mean, that said, this is Odo, so he probably would go as cheaply and miserably as possible, so he can moan about it later.
Do you think Odo enjoys a cheeky Nando's?
What, looking at one?
Yeah.
Can he shapeshift into one? Like, he can do the refilling drinks thing, so that kind of works.
But, unfortunately, this is not an Odo podcast. This is a Dax podcast. So,
yeah. So,
Dax was, Curzon was banging the wife. Go!
Yeah, so she explains to Odo, Odlan, he was kind of a bit of a shit, not really a hero. And up in the trial, Sisko realizes Jadzia has been protecting her reputation and won't talk about the affair that was had, which is probably leading to a lot of these problems. Back in session, Sisko questions Jadzia, and partway through, it's Ilon's mum. Yes, the widow shows up, shuts up her son pretty much immediately, and explains, look, Curzon was accused of sending a message to the enemy, wasn't him, and she knows, because he was getting busy with her. The Arbiter leaves, and evidently never wants to come back to the station. Anina and Jadzia walk along the upper promenade, Anina mentioning that Odlan had called the rebels out to betray the cause, and for doing that, they killed him anyway. And she's been able to dine out on the whole martyr thing, luckily. So, it's been ups and downs for her. Still, she leaves, gives Jadzia a bit of a stroke on the face, and says to live a long, fresh and wonderful life for at least, 5 more seasons?
5, 6 more seasons?
Yeah, about that. And that's the end.
Right, 1 minute 25. It's been a while. Have we actually ever done... Oh, when we did a trial episode last episode.
We did. Yeah. I was thinking we could probably get an entire episode of trials happening. What the fuck with this Ilon guy and his whole mission? Surely you've got to get someone else involved that's not the son of the victim.
And if you want to have someone ship back to your home planet to stand trial, you generally go and present your paperwork. So either the Federation doesn't have an extradition treaty with this particular planet, or he was just gonna like just gank Dax while in warp.
Maybe. Like, thing is, the feds they had ties with. It's the Bajorans they didn't, and is the process of Bajoran bureaucracy so bad that you need to start paying underhanded people for secret schematics and codes, and the amount of time and the amount of money that it must have taken to break into DS9 and kidnap a high-ranking officer. Surely the Bajoran process must have been easier than that.
Well, don't forget, the Bajorans are actually just rebuilding their society from the ground
Yeah.
up because they've just recently, achieved liberation from the Cardassians. That said, it's good to know that they have a big, heavy gavel thingy for their trials.
Love a good sci-fi prop and a big weird stone to just bang against things. So yeah, good.
Yeah, I wish they'd call it like the Stone of Judgment.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, need to start naming these weird items. I was saying, because Emma was watching this with me, as I had little time to watch all of these, so Emma sat in on a couple and explained to her about Strange New Worlds having a trial episode and how even Starfleet have weird brooches that everyone had, which I'm sure means some kind of rank, but I love the bonkersness of the ritual for so many of these things. Was it a gong? No, bell for the trial in Menagerie
in
as
Menagerie.
well. Yeah, why? Who cares? It's ludicrous and entertaining.
That one just probably feels like an old naval tradition.
Yeah, true.
This is like what, episode 8?
Yep.
So we're still in that awkward like early half of the first season where the actors don't really have their characters down yet, because how Dax is presented here feels a lot different from how Jadzia gets presented later on in the show.
Yeah. I think they've all got like a personality trait or so. Like Julian is unpleasantly like kind of first half of Buffy's Xander Harris in his, I know you're saying no, but when you say no, you mean stalk me, please, stalk me like crazy. It's just, it's a bad look. These days even more so, but I don't, was this ever really affable and charming?
Yeah, he's kind of British, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've said in previous episodes, I like Julian Bashir, mainly because he's pretty rubbish at a lot of things. Like, even when he turns out to be genetically engineered and super smart, it's like, there's smart and there's,
Just look, as we both know, just because you're smart doesn't mean you have good social skills.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very clear that Julian Bashir has the social skills of a dumbass.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting seeing the Dax-Cisco relationship here as well. Like, we knew that they were mates back in the old days, but Cisco going, well, I don't really know a huge amount about this body. My mate Curzon.
Yeah, it feels like he and Curzon had a very kind of mentor-mentee relationship. Whereas, like, with Jadzia at this point, it feels like it's reversed. Like, he's kind of the mentor to someone who used to be his mentor, but I have one fault. I have one fault with this episode. And this is something that's going to come up in our next episode. But how has the entire Trill society progressed so far? Yet you'd think that this would have cropped up legally. Like, you have Cisco tell Kira, do some research, see if a symbiote has killed someone before, and if there's a legal precedent. And that never comes up again. And you feel like in Trill in any society, this would have happened at least once.
Yeah. Yeah, they can't have all been wonderful cases of sticking a symbiote in someone. One of them, whether it's the slug or the person, would have been a bad egg at some point.
There has to have been, like, a crime of passion.
Yeah. Well, you get a few snippets of Trill lore over the years, and it does feel like they're quite a secretive people, especially those back home, rather than the people that go out into the world as kind of Trill host and symbiote pairings, So maybe it is that kind of thing of they are pretty locked down about what they do.
Or, like, there's very much like a class feeling that, like, the Trill who are joined to a symbiote are seen as very much like an upper class.
Yeah.
So, given that we're both British with a very intense class society, you get the feeling that probably, like, the Trill attitude to murder is, okay, did a symbiote do it? This didn't happen. Only unjoined Trills commit murder.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, we'll find out a bit of controversy about compatible Trill as well shortly, which, again, leads into that sense of maybe it is a weird classist thing. And, going, okay, we'll make sure that it's only these people that are worthy of it.
Although, I will say the one thing in this episode's favor, this might be the only episode of Star Trek to date where the villain is defeated by his mum walking in and go, the person you're trying to kill, we fucked. It was hot. This is now a public record that I cucked your dad, and I loved it.
I loved how quickly she's like...
It was sweaty. It was weird.
Yeah, she's just like appears. It's like, no, shut up. Thing is, it's not like there's really an ending for him. He's just, this ain't about you.
Like, he looks really ashamed of his mum, or just kind of awkward, because, like, I don't know if you ever had this with your parents. Like, when your stepfather, for no reason am I mentioning a stepfather, starts going on about his sexual history, and you're just kind of there in the room going, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. So that could have been it.
I mean, my dad's version of the talk was pretty much kind of the sort of, yes, and this is why I am better than you kind of level of like, oh yeah, these conquests that I've had over the years, yes, you're unlikely to have these. Sort of thing. It's like, great, thanks.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad.
Good work.
So, do you think, like, she didn't? Do you think she told Odo on the shuttle ride back? It's just kind of really awkward because Odo is still kind of figuring out how, like, how, like, solid culture works. So she's just kind of like, he just kind of shapeshifts his ears away so he doesn't have to listen to anything she's saying.
God, who knows? Like, that's going to have been an awkward ride over anyway, and a quick one as well. Because the trial doesn't take too long. They get some nice long recesses, but still, that's a few hours. Very, very good detectiving from Odo, and drag her up there again. Like, I can't imagine she'd want to bother with DS9 after all this nonsense. Same as the Arbiter, who seemed like gloriously hateful of all of this, but in that kind of, let's at least see where this is going.
Let's see,
like,
when does the bar open? Shit, we closed the bar for this fucking trial. Right, let's get this done.
We're in the bar.
I want. Okay, let's get this done. It's drinky time.
Exactly.
So, we've with this episode, we've added the salt to the episode. We boil away the water, and so all that's left to do is to add the salt to our big list.
Yes, we have a big list of 102 Star Trek things, movies and TV shows alike. And at number one, the number one entry for a while now, we've got Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Around the halfway point at 51, we have Excretus from Lower Decks, showing the real variety in quality and topic of this, from the high-minded to Excretus. But yeah, where some holodeck training drills go incredibly badly. The name is stupid, but it is very good fun. And then all the way down at the bottom, we have Strange New Worlds' Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. One day, I hope there will be an episode with a shorter name right down there. So, where on this list does Dax belong?
So, do you know what the lowest DS9 we have on the list so far is?
Ooh, I don't.
It's Move Along Home at 81.
Alamarine!
All right, okay. Is Dax better or worse than Move Along Home?
So, as entertainingly stupid as Move Along Home is, it's probably worse than Dax. Like, this is... Both of them are early career everyone. So, everyone's starting to get used to their characters. DS9 is starting to figure out what it is as a show, but this feels closer to what it lands on than what Move Along Home does as something that happens 2 episodes later.
Yeah, I feel like my big issue with the episode, like, it's not a bad episode. And of course, it's very much in that kind of, we're gonna use the trial to kind of discuss, like, Dax.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's not like, say, like Measure of a Man, which is like, is Data alive?
Yeah.
It's going, is Jadzia separate enough from Curzon? This should feel less unique as the situation is being presented as.
I like that it's the start of these discussions, and we'll see a bunch of them about what is Dax's relationship to her past, to consciousness, all of these kind of things. That's some nice Star Trek bullshit. It's a trial episode, and those are a real mixed bag, I find. But yeah, while the meat of it is fairly standard, there are some fun bits here. I'm just looking up the next one further up. It's Treachery, Faith in the Great River, where you get multiple Jeffrey Combses. And while that feels a little less defined in what it is, being a few different plots all going on, I think it's still a bit better quality wise.
Yeah, like, all the actors know their parts. Like, we've reached a point where we know and love these characters, even the Wayuns.
Yes. So let's see, betwixt those DS9s, that's spot 63 for Treachery, Faith in the Great River, and spot 81 for Move Along Home. I think the game is more fun than this, but I have a soft spot for it.
I'm looking at number 72, which is Prodigy's Kobayashi, where Dal speedruns the Kobayashi Maru and gets a lesson in how to be a good leader. I feel like since these are both earlier episodes of shows, it's still trying, Prodigy at this point is still kind of working out the characters and their roles on the ship and in the show, but that's more intentional in, like, the gradual plotting of the season than the luxury that classic 90s Trek gets to do, which is, we have 22 episodes, we can kind of spin plates.
Yeah, we can feel it out.
what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. I guess it's that thing of looking at those two. Do we learn more about Dal by his constant fucking up of holographic Kobayashi Maru than we do about Dax in this trial? And I think for an episode named Dax, it's not really enough Dax in it.
No, Dax just kind of just sits there and is silent.
Yeah.
I get the feeling here that, Dax was going to be a bit like the Spock or the Data of the show by being a very kind of clinically scientific one.
Mm.
And not like the more, she's the science officer, but she's also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because she has lived all these lives. Whereas here we see her as, she was very driven to be chosen for a symbiote. She's scientifically brilliant. She's dedicated. She doesn't feel like she has as much of a character as the rest of the cast around her. Like, from the get-go, we get what Cisco is. From minute one of Emissary, from meeting her, we know everything about who Kira is, how Kira operates, and more importantly, what ticks Kira off.
Mm.
And I feel like the same with Dal. We see him screw up again and again and again, and it does reach like a moment of catharsis where, from that point on, he does start to grow and mature as a character, even though like the kind of I'm just like I'm the cool guy.
I was so ready for it to go down that route, and I was ready to despise him for that, and Kobayashi really turned it round.
It does. Like, there are still elements of that part of his persona, of his character there, but I do feel there is an actual switch that that Dal does mature, and that maturity sticks. There are points when he slips back on his bad behavior, as we all do, but you do see him grow as both a leader and both in embracing the ideals and the functions of what Starfleet is.
Mm.
This one, I don't know. It just doesn't have. It feels like at times they're still basically doing reheated next gen, and they haven't worked out that really fantastic combination of factors which will make DS9 sing.
Yeah. So, under Kobayashi?
Yeah.
Probably above Minefield. Like, Minefield's good fun, but there's quite a bit less to it as a bit of a two-hander. So that'd put this at the new number 73.
That works for me, 73 and me.
Next on the slate is Star Trek Deep Space Nine. You might recognize a pattern with the shows we're covering today. Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 4, titled Equilibrium. This aired on the 17th of October 1994. Teleplay by Renee Echevarria, story by Christopher Teague, and directed by Cliff Bowl. The UK number one hit was Take That with Shaw, and the US had Boys to Men with I'll Make Love to You. This feels like very much like the indicative boy bands of both sides.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I admit, I kind of just like, once I reached a point with both these songs, I was just like, okay, skip, next song.
Yeah, so the music video for Take That, the first 3.5 minutes is a skit. And I sat through all of that for some incredibly samey music with, like, if you imagine a Take That song, that's basically what this is. The only thing it made me realize was, oh my God, was Robbie Williams supposed to be the bad boy of it?
Maybe.
I don't know, like he's all shaven-headed in the video and being a bit antagonistic. It's like, oh, that feels kind of weird now, for a guy that's tried to be very like crooner coded for the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years.
I admit, Robbie Williams is just a non-entity here in the States, so I just kind of, I don't know how his career has panned out since he left Take That the second time.
Oh, he sings on adverts for Felix cat food.
Okay.
Yep. And yeah, Boys to Men. This feels like we've heard this one before. So it's not like I go out of my way to listen to Boys to Men, but yeah, it's again, it feels very much like, yep, that's them. But do you know it's not them?
E17.
I was going to say weird, evil past life selves that exist in the slug in your gut. But yeah, I guess yours works too. So, Mars, what is Equilibrium all about? Start those slugs a revving.
Right, so Dax has to do the Trill rite of closure, where she has to make peace with all of her past lives. She's calling all of her friends, including Lita, who was there the whole time. I guarantee it. Charlie just realized what I'm doing. I was actually started to surmise the episode, which I watched mistakenly instead of one of the previous Trill episodes from the Trill episode. So.
Oh dear, it's going to be one of those ones then, is it, Mars?
So, hey, it's cookout night at the Cisco's. They're doing some proper Cajun cooking. Odo is helping stirring his souffle. Bashir doesn't like beetroot. They really go for beets in this country. Jadzia comes in. She's had a long day at work, and she comes across what is basically an old Casio keyboard from the 80s. It turns out to be Jake's, but Jake has no aptitude for it. Jadzia starts playing, and she starts playing this tune really well, and she's never actually touched one before, not in any of her previous lives. Weird. This tune starts really getting in her head, and she's singing it all the time, to the point where it's annoying Cisco during their regular game of chess. And when he calls her on it, Jadzia just snaps and storms off. Kira comes down to confront Dax, and Dax is now just being really uncharacteristically pissy and bitchy. And she storms away from Kira, and then she walks straight into a hallucination where she sees a figure wearing masks, and the figure keeps removing masks. You see, the masks are a visual metaphor for the masks we wear ourselves. And it turns out her isoboromine levels are dropping rapidly, causing hallucinations. Isoboromine is the chemical which helps maintain the symbiotic relationship between the symbiote, the slug, and the host. And if Dax's levels drop any further, then they will have to remove the symbiote for the symbiote's protection, which will mean Dax's death. Things are getting worse. And so they all hop on the Defiant, and it's like, right, we're going on a workplace holiday to Trill to have the symbiote committee take care of this. They head off to Trill. Dax is worried. Despite all of Bashir's best efforts, nothing is improving. Turns out the last time there was a medical problem with the symbiote, it was with the host before Curzon, who was in a 6-month coma before passing on. They reach Trill, and, things seem to be getting better. Dax takes Cisco and Bashir down to the underground pools where the unjoined symbionts just kind of swim about and just make little static electricity shocks. They meet one of the Guardians who is coded as autistic and kooky. and he realizes that there's a problem with the Dax symbiote. And they managed to track down the composer of the tune. It turns out that it was a composer named Joran who went weird, who went weird and killed a bunch of people. But it turns out that this kind of corresponds with the 6-month period that the Dax host at the time was in a coma. But Joran's old brother says that he was actually a Trill initiate, and apparently he claimed that he managed to be joined to a symbiote, even though the Symbiosis Committee denies that this happened. They go, the gang go back down to talk to the Guardian, who is now saying nothing. He is keeping stum, and Cisco has clearly seen enough episodes of the X-Files to go, wait, I sense a cover-up. And so they come up with they believe what happened was that the host died earlier than anticipated, and so the Dax...
Stop! This is an X-Files style cover-up. We can't continue. We must stop all of this. Right. Just kidding. It's me.
Charlie!
Hey! Yeah, I'm not sure who that character was, but yeah, I'm not even going to bother naming him. I'm going to just hit start and see how long it takes you to finish this off. Go.
So, yeah, it turns out what actually happened was the Trill was passed into Joran, who then became Joran Dax, and then it turns out he was actually unstable, and so killed a bunch of people. And when the Symbiosis Commission caught him, they blocked the memories in the symbiote and then transferred it into Curzon. The reason why there's a huge cover-up is, the truth is, a lot of the Trills are actually able to be hosts far more than there are symbiotes. So the Symbiote Committee has actually been operating under a web of lies, because if the people found out, then the symbiotes would just be swapped about willy-nilly, because so many people could have the honor of being joined to a Trill symbiote. And it's those memory blocks which are starting to break apart now, and that's what's causing the trauma in Dax. Cisco confronts the head of the Trill Committee and decides, yeah, no, this is fine. We'll let the lie continue, then completely destroy Trill society. Meanwhile, in one of the pools, Jadzia bathes and embraces Joran's memories into herself. She is now fully complete and in equilibrium.
Hey. So, Miles, you a fan of beetroots?
Not particularly.
No, I'm not keen. And that's 1 minute and 38 seconds. One of my old managers, local legend, who we've spoken about a few times here, Hugh, had an allotment. And I'd never been keen on the smell of beetroot, but he handed me one. It was fairly early in working there, so I feel like I ought to try it, and got the confirmation that yes, I don't care for beetroot at all. I'm a vegetarian, but lifelong, but no.
So do you think the only reason he grew the beetroots was to cover up the pungent smell of the skunk he was secretly growing?
Who knows? Who knows what went on in his allotment? And yeah, so this is yet another. I guess we're 3 seasons into DS9, and we're covering up for giant planet-spanning lies, creating a bit of a class system here. That's not great. It's not, lift us where suffering cannot reach, child killing machine. But yeah, it casts a bit of a bad light on the Trill.
Well, to be fair, the Trill haven't always had as you remember from the first episode where we're introduced to them, where a slug is implanted into Riker and Riker loses all bodily autonomy, to the point where it gets weird with him and Beverly Crusher.
Yeah, I think given that was the first time the Trill appeared, that's probably... I don't know if someone's no-prized that away as some sort of unique incident or some subspecies of Trill or something like that. But
More than likely, I'm just going to put it down to like a bad food allergy.
yeah, maybe. Yeah. Oh no. Oh god. He's got a weird intolerance for having a slug in him. Oh well. But this with the hidden murderer as a host, it felt like it was an interesting one. It felt more low key than Jadzia has a secret murder host for the Dax symbiote would be on paper, really. So, we get to know about this murderer. Oh, that's exciting. He did only kill 3 people. So we're not...
This will be important for the next episode, for the last episode.
He killed a doctor and 2 other vaguely related people that don't even have a role mentioned.
So, like, for a moment, you kind of think, okay, so is the past life going to take over Jadzia, and Jadzia is going to go like on a kill spree? Like, we've already done. We did this with the Tuvok episode with Meld, where Tuvok mind melds with sweaty, moist Brad Dourif, and kind of goes a little bit crazy. Whereas here it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, it turns out the slug is processing traumas of a past life it was made to forget that it had. And it's just kind of, just give her some vitamin D and some melatonin, she'll be right as rain.
Yeah. It's fairly easily solved ultimately. Of that, oh yeah, you've got this secret personality, make peace with that. Will there be any repercussions? Nah.
No. It turns out you've got trauma. So you need a therapist to kind of deal with this. I did like, given that we had very skeezy Julian Bashir in the first episode, that we have Julian be much more of a friend to her in this episode, and in a much like, just like he's mellowed out in his horny for Jadzia phase.
Yeah,
and it's like kind of like, yeah, they're friends now. And yes, the bit when she comes to his quarters, which would have gone an entirely different way season 1.
Oh my god, yeah, it would have been very unpleasant. His reaction to her showing up at his quarters in season 1, but yeah, here at least folks are supportive, and we do get that sense of like we get to actually see some more Jadzia in this. Than we did in the episode named Dax. So that's nice. I like the attendant guy in the slug caves, which, hey, it's for slug caves again.
Yeah,
that's someone he's been at the job way too long.
Timor.
Needs a bit of a vacation, needs to chill.
I don't know, he feels like the kind of character you get in, like, because of the nature of Doctor Who, you get a lot of side characters in stories who are just going to be in like 1 or 2 episodes and then get melted by something.
Yeah.
And I always feel like one of the really good strengths of Doctor Who is being able to like give us these supporting characters who do feel like having like this very kind of rich history and characterization, which looks good on a show reel for your jobbing actor. And I don't know, I feel like you don't get this kind of weird side like character type in a lot of Star Trek. Like you don't get these kind of very almost, I'm gonna have to say it, Lynchian in his weirdness. Like, this guy is the worm. This guy is the space worm guy.
Yeah, I hadn't paid attention to his actual name, but yeah, he was space worm guy, and that was great.
And he had a lot of nice weird tics.
Yeah,
which then juxtaposed nicely to when like the conspiracy has gotten to him, and he's suddenly like very taciturn and is like, nope, I don't know anything. Don't know anything.
Well, yeah, that definitely helped.
I wish I could say that like the X-Files had been like an influence, but given like production time and given when the X-Files actually started airing, it's just like, no, it's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Like the huge popularization of like government cover-ups in the 90s isn't going to be for like another few years until the X-Files hits peak zeitgeist.
True. Yeah, so I feel this episode was good. Definitely one I enjoyed more than Dax. Fairly chill, ultimately. Like, for something where Jadzia Dax is dying and has a secret murder host.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
has a dark passenger.
So, given the amount of times that X-Men are revealed to have dark pasts, like, are there any which feel as inconsequential as this one?
Pretty much every other Wolverine one.
Every other Wolverine revelation.
Pretty much. Like, oh, he was in this war. He did these things. Fine. I don't know. As far as secret hidden pasts, I'm on the doorstep of Deadly Genesis. I'm actually going to be away at a mini-con, cabin con with some friends, including Kofi donor Ben, at Cabin Con 10. And each morning I will be reading an issue of Deadly Genesis before going off to play board games and actually have a fun time. And with that, you have the secret revelation that Professor X had a whole second X-Men team before the all-new, all-different giant-size X-Men lot. They just all died, and the only witnesses to this were Moira, who knows to keep stum about anything shady that Professor X is doing, and Cyclops, who he just mind wipes. And I can't help but feel this isn't the first or last time that Professor X has done that. Like, oh shit, no, he shouldn't have seen me watching that show in my office. Right, quick, mind wipe him.
Cyclops caught Professor X eating like the last of Cyclops's marked egg salad, marked specifically for Cyclops.
Yeah.
And, you know Xavier just wiped his mind and made him think that Iceman ate it.
Oh god, definitely. Yeah, but at that point, Cyclops' head must have so many holes in it from Professor X tinkering with his head, dating Jean Grey, anything.
Maybe that's why his optic blast he can't control, because like Xavier has just like basically just poked so many mental pencils into his brain to see what works.
Yeah, the brain damage he suffered would have healed eventually, but not at this point.
But like this has some nice little character bits. You get some Avery Brooks being grumpy and angry. But like this is better than Dax. But given the revelations that the episode brings up, you think it would be more of a... I think this might just be a problem we just kind of have because now we live in that sort of era of streaming event shows. Where every episode, every revelation must be an event.
Like film level.
And not just like, yep, we're just like, this is the story. We're just going to put all the pieces back in the box. We're still going to refer to it. It's still, but that's what happened.
Okay. So, as far as things which weren't as great as they could have been, the marquee 2-part for DS9 is in spot number 60 currently. Sure enough, it was a landmark episode in the marquee being a thing, which would both feature in DS9 and TNG, but it wasn't great and had a lot of Cisco lecturing those pesky rebels about maybe not being as upset about Cardassians, taking their stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Better or worse than... Would this be better or worse than the marquee?
I feel this might be slightly better than the Marquis, because the Marquis starts really strong in the first part,
Yeah.
and then in the second episode, it drops the ball.
It deflates. Yeah.
Whereas this kind of keeps at a fairly even tone throughout the episode, and while the tone does feel at odds with the character story and revelations, it maintains. It never. While it just kind of feels like it just sort of ends, it never feels like, oh, we went off the rails.
Yeah.
In this last part, like say Threshold.
Okay. So yeah. Oh yes, fan favorite Threshold. At least on this show. Okay. Yeah, you've got Captive Pursuit, where a lizard man is being most dangerous gamed. Which was fun.
Yeah, but that episode has something this episode doesn't. Large amounts of Miles O'Brien.
Yes. True. So what? You reckon worse than Captive Pursuit and better than Marquis?
Yeah, because I think Captive Pursuit has some really nice, like, standout scenes. Like, I think one of my favorite scenes in Captive Pursuit is when Cisco tells Odo to go stop them, but tells Odo to take his time, and you just have Odo just kind of awkwardly walking towards the lift and just kind of stopping and just like, okay.
God, so that's season 1, episode 6, and yet that episode feels so much like they get it. Like, this is Cisco. This is, what's going on with these.
These are our characters. Here's how they react to the situations. Here's how Cisco is different from Picard.
Yeah.
Here's how Odo is similar to and different from Worf.
Okay. So that'd put this as the new number 60 on the list. Yeah, God. Sometimes we've gone through enough of these that I'm like, I've completely forgot Captive Pursuit existed. But yeah, that was a good fun one. That was a nice time.
Like, you can never go wrong with a good spin on The Most Dangerous Game.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, we're switching Daxes now. Because while we couldn't do 3 different shows, we can at least do 2 different Daxes. So this time we are all the way to 1999, specifically the 10th of February 99, for Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 13, titled Field of Fire. This was written by Robert Hewitt Wolfe and directed by Tony Dow. The UK number 1 hit was Armand Van Helden with You Don't Know Me, and the US number 1 hit was Britney Spears with Baby One More Time. Now, we've mentioned a bunch of times about like Whitney Houston and Meatloaf feeling like entities from an earlier age. Britney Spears, I was sure, was earlier in the 90s than this. That feels weird.
Like, I remember like the huge peak of Britney Mania was coming about just as I'm about to leave school.
Yeah, because this would have been my last year at college. God, wow. Armand Van Helden is not someone I've ever intentionally listened to, but was definitely on the radio a bunch back in my comic shop working days. And is, very much that kind of dance music of the time. I'd never really cared for it.
All right.
So,
Charlie.
Yeah, time to start the weird Trill ritual. I'll go and find a mirror.
Yep, and if you don't complete this in 5 minutes, I will teleport a bullet into your favorite Cyclops statue.
No!
And go.
So, it's Quark's bar, and all is well. Julian Bashir toasts Lieutenant Hector Ilario, a fighter pilot who we haven't seen before, but I'm sure he has a great career ahead of him. Julian and Miles rush off for their special private boys' adventure time in the holosuite, and Hector wants to come along, but he's not invited. Later on, Ezri, Kira, and Hector are all that's left of the party, and it's time to go home. We are spared Quark playing closing time to boot all of them out, but yeah, it's definitely hit that point where Ezri is escorting Hector back to his quarters, and he hits on her a bit, and she kind of politely rebuffs him, but does admire the nice photo of him and his friends, one of whom is sadly dead now. The other's kind of far away. She leaves and wakes up the next day a bit late with a hangover. There's a commotion outside. People are running around. They're all heading around Hector's quarters. He's dead! Oh no! Luckily, Odo is on the case. He explains that this was some kind of chemically propelled bullet, something people don't really use anymore. Miles and Cisco recognize a TR-116 bullet. This is from a firearm that was basically just a prototype and nothing else. It never got proper release, but someone in Starfleet of high enough rank would be able to get one. There were no powder burns here, which Odo looks for after having read a bunch of old crime novels and knowing how old-timey crimes were solved. Hector, as it turns out, was killed a whole 10 minutes after Ezri left, and this hits her pretty hard. At the bar, Julian, Miles, and Ezri all mourn Hector, a man they barely knew. Apparently he did idolise the lads, and that just makes them feel even worse. Ezri, on the other hand, goes to Hector's coffin to feel worse herself, and has a bit of a chat with Julian, and mentions, oh yeah, she had a killer as a host, Joran Dax, who killed a whole 3 people, and she kind of knows what some of this whole death thing's like from that. This whole situation's kind of bringing that out in her. And she has a bad dream where Hector's been arrested for his own murder. Ooh, and there's jam on her hands. Oh no! And then she wakes up with a start. There's been another murder. Greta Vanderwig, who was killed in the same fashion as Hector. She was a bit older and had been on the station for a while with no obvious connection. O'Brien has been brilliantly O'Briening during all of this. He's been thinking about the TR-116 and test something out, inspired by Julian of all people. He shoots a melon through a wall thanks to displaced targeting in a small-range transporter. That's great. It would explain the lack of powder burns. The problem is, the murderer could be anywhere. So, bit later, after hours, Ezra's tired, walks home from the promenade and senses someone moving around. Is it the killer? No, it's Worf. He's concerned for Ezri and really terrible at showing it, so he's been stalking her. They're both a bit awkward, but he trusts she'll know what to do. And what does she do? She does a Trill ritual to summon Joran Dax, the murderous host Jadzia had, and Curzon did a lot to repress back in the day. He's been ignored for too long, and he comes in hamming it up. He's like Hannibal Lecter, or a Joker, despite mainly having only killed 3 doctors who didn't really want him to be a host. But, despite this, he gets Ezri to feel a rifle and, don't you like the way this gun feels? A control over life and death. Ooh, look through the X-ray targeter. Look at this man. Ooh, could you kill him? Pull the trigger, Ezri! And she doesn't, and luckily the gun wasn't loaded anyway, but none of this is good. She realises, oh yeah, this was maybe a scientist or a doctor, someone that wanted that cold clinical control, not being near the people, just being able to choose carefully, point and shoot. Ezri then spends a bit of time in public talking to Joran, the only person that appropriately gives her concerned reactions to this yelling at some murderer who's obviously only in her head is Quark. Joran wants to murder him, but no. No, it's Quark.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm murdered for time?
You murdered the time.
Oh, no. Okay, well, alas, I,
Haven't you ever looked at someone and thought, I could murder them?
oddly no.
Doesn't murdering people make you want to feel powerful?
Oh, dear. Oh, I need to stop listening to the voices.
Yeah, no. This is the voice. You must finish narrating the episode. You must finish recapping the episode. Your time starts now.
Yeah, so Ezri and her new imaginary friend, Joran, wander over to Hector and Greta's quarters to play Phoenix Wright. They have a look at some of the clues. Hector has a photo with his dead friend and his distant friend. Greta had a lot of weird tat and a wedding photo with her husband, who's assigned elsewhere. There's no real visible link. Was it just random? That'd be pretty inconvenient. Ezri and Joran start arguing in Quarks when there's a shout and a man runs away. Could this be the murderer? Ezri trips him up and, thanks to Joran, very nearly stabs him. He's just a gun nut, though, and wasn't on for station during one of the murders, so it wasn't him. Apparently the future still has gun nuts. Who knew? Anyway, Ezri tries to unsummon Joran from her mind, and he briefly fades, but it's interrupted. There's been another murder. A Bolian this time. Zim! Nothing like the invader, sadly. The murderer isn't just targeting humans. They have a look through his stuff, and Joran points out how could he be smiling in a photo with his ugly children? And that's it! Smiling! The killer's scanning rooms visually with the X-ray specs, and he's seeing photos of people that look happy and killing them. It's a Vulcan! That seems a bit of a leap, but sure, why not? One who went through some shit and isn't processing it well. That narrows the list down considerably. And handily, Ezri gets into a turbo lift with Chulak, a shady Vulcan if ever I saw one. He's calm in that way that's kind of the Vulcan equivalent of shaking and visibly sweating. Ezri looks into Chulak's history once they part ways and see he was one of 6 survivors from the Grissom. 6 out of 1,250. Ezri uses the scope to have a bit of a spy in his quarters, and he's looking at her files right now. And then he's getting a gun out. Oh yes, I think he might be the murderer. She aims at him just as he's starting to aim at her. They both shoot. She manages to incapacitate him just as he hits the wall off to one side of her. They've got their perp. Why did he do this? Because logic demanded it, apparently. Joran wants her to do a murder, but she just steps on his gun and calls it in. Ezri does the whole unsummoning ritual, and Joran's going back in the hole, but he'll be just as much a part of her as Curzon, Tarius, and Jadzia. Fine. She's fine with that. His reflection fades, leaving just Ezri Dax behind.
2 minutes, 52 seconds.
Whew, that took a little while. Yeah, so have you ever murdered a colleague? I know you've brained one or two, but you know.
Not intentionally.
Okay. Have you ever had a weird voice in your head telling you to?
No.
Okay, that's probably good because we are going to put this out on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting seeing the weird head Joran, even though it was a different actor to the original one. This one actually got stuff to do, while the previous one was kind of there briefly in flashback. What is it? Jeff Magnus McBride. The original one wasn't available, and this guy, Lee McCloskey, was brought in instead. Apparently he wasn't scary enough, but the director liked his acting anyway. And yeah, he was hamming it up something fierce.
Yeah.
He was like... Now, I might be slightly biased because Emma was watching her comfort show, Hannibal, earlier in the evening before I saw this. But it felt like he wanted to be some kind of campy Hannibal type murderer of like, oh yes, oh, this newspaper reminds me of murders. Oh, do you want to do murders? You could murder someone with this cup.
Murder.
Murder. Yeah, that. It's like, mate, you killed 3 people that fucked you over about not being a host.
You kill 3 people, and the thing about serial killers, which Joran is not.
No.
Like, Chulak is more closer to like how serial killers operate, which is they're weird loners who get caught because they overplayed their hand. Whereas Joran is just kind of just doing that very, oh, life and death. Aren't I so special because I've done a murder?
No, you're not special, Joran. I don't know. Maybe it's been locked away so long that he's just got a bit weird with it. Like, oh, I've been stuck in a head for 2 lives.
Like, Joran acts about so smug and superior about murder the same way tech bros, talk about crypto.
Oh, God.
And they're both as insufferable.
I don't know. There was an amount of Joran's over-egging the whole murderer thing that I was amused by.
Him.
Ooh, yes. He and Ezri had fun interactions. Like, despite all that we're giving Lee McCloskey shit for hamming up a role that wasn't originally his and wasn't really the kind of murderer that he's acting. The person in head stuff can often be good fun. Like, I'm a big fan of BSG. I'm a big fan of Farscape, both of which did this admittedly better than this, but both did it well.
See, if Joran had turned up in a Hawaiian shirt with like a coconut pina colada, I'd be down.
Oh God, yes, yeah. Well, I mean, that said, maybe those clothes are the Trill equivalent of that.
This is actually the first time I've ever seen Nicole DeBauer as Ezri Dax. I've actually never seen this far. Like, the only times I've watched this far into DS9 have been the times we've watched it for the show.
Okay, so treachery, faith in the Great River, basically.
She's not, basically.
But yeah, she's someone who I remember vaguely. I've seen maybe half a dozen episodes of this season. I saw her enough that when I saw The Dark Half, starring Anthony Michael Hall from The Breakfast Club, I was like, oh, it's Ezri Dax. But that's about it. And yeah, she was good fun in that. It was a show that was better than it had any right to be. Still not great, but at least it was no Under the Dome. Like, Under the Dome was very bad.
Do you know what is bad?
Kira's
hairstyle in this episode.
Yeah.
Like,
I forget if this is a season 7 thing.
Like, Kira has a Karen haircut.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, really, because she didn't know back then. And our visitor didn't know that in, couple of decades of change, that hairstyle would mostly be known for wanting to speak to the manager.
Yeah. I do approve of Odo reading Raymond Chandler.
Yeah.
I do not approve of him reading Mike Hammer novels because, they're definitely Odo's level.
Oh no!
Like, you got a guy. He's gonna get to the bottom of stuff, no matter who he beats up.
Oh shit! One of those kind of detective things.
He's less like, he's not like a Sherlock Holmes. He's very two-fisted, and they do go into like, they are like, in terms of like pulp noir detective stories. He's very much like the two-fisted. He's gonna punch every guy. He's gonna snog every woman. He's gonna call every minority a slur. Yeah.
Odo really doesn't need any of that kind of encouragement to be an abusive police officer.
No, they should have given Odo like some Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. I don't know. I think he'd find Sherlock insufferable.
More than likely. Yeah, no, that's true. You'd think an episode with like a Vulcan serial killer would have, well, a Vulcan killer. Again, like with Dax, you think this would be treated as much more of a big thing than it actually is.
Well, you do get that stunned reaction from some of them, especially Julian, who, at this point we're full into Julian is genius Julian, but he's still a bit dumb. Let's face it. But yeah, he's very much in that, what? Humans did this kind of... Like, he can't countenance the idea that people would use, one, a gun, and two, that a Starfleet person would do a murder. And, I mean, some of the folks that he works with are guilty of a number of murders.
As we've said, Worf definitely killed a guy and basically got off with an HR meeting.
Like, it feels fairly naive of Julian to have that attitude, but yeah, I guess at this point, this kind of serial killer or murderer kind of thing isn't a thing as much. Like, it's gonna happen, but they're gonna have ways of... The murderer feels a bit anticlimactic. It being a Vulcan, interesting. The method, interesting. The motive... I don't care. So, like, I feel like he needs to show he's working a bit more. Like, the photo thing, I get it. You got your X-ray specs. You look around and go, these people are happy. Insert better reason. And
I did like the murder weapon. Like,
yes.
That's a nice techno-babbly way to get around, like, your traditional tropes.
Yeah, it was a fun thing. And the suspense. Like, I feel like you could have rear windowed it, maybe, with the X-ray specs.
I mean, given this, it's probably for the best that, like, the Federation is a perfect utopian society because, yeah, they can do a lot of crimes.
Oh god, it'd be so easy to make all kinds of weird murder weapons. In fact, like, I'm not a crime guy, but I'd kind of almost rather a weird murder mystery show than a Section 31, oh, isn't it all shady kind of show. Like,
yeah.
Even better, just give me a Poirot in space.
Or
there
like
you go, Starfleet Poirot. Yes! Yeah, that kind of thing. Of like, give us for weird gimmicks and stuff.
Because, like you said, the bits when it gets to the end and they're doing the rear window, that's when the episode that really just picks up.
Oh yeah, that was great fun. And like, the Joran stuff was the best Joran has been in these episodes. Ezri was good fun with that. Yeah, I don't know if Jadzia, like, how well it would have done with someone more confident and experienced like Jadzia in that place. I feel like she would have tagged in more of the team rather than going off on her own to prove it all.
But also, it would have, if it had been Jadzia, it wouldn't have been her story because Ezri is she's a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
So Sisko's basically asking her to do a criminal profile.
Yeah, that was interesting to see, and a good kind of, oh yeah, this is something specifically for this new character. Yeah, I remember, was it SFX or something, getting all excited about, look, there's the new Dax with a proper rifle on DS9. It's like, oh no, they're not going to turn it into some military thing, are they? It's like, nope, it's this. And luckily they put the rifles back.
Well, they've got, like, they're at full on war with the Dominion, so we're in war era DS9. So this kind of, that start just kind of felt really a bit weird. I've actually not seen this part. I will say, you can tell this episode was written by Americans because no people from the British Isle give this much of a fuck about Davy Crockett.
God, yeah, never. I've never really heard anyone reference Davy Crockett. Yeah, I don't know, maybe the hat, but yeah, it's why would we know about this? Yeah, I don't know. It's like an American knowing about Enid Blyton, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Noddy's relatively popular. Okay, I'd say like American knowing about Famous Five. Like the
Okay.
stuff Enid Blyton wrote, which wasn't Noddy.
Oh God, yes, yeah, that is a very good point. Yeah,
Like
God,
I don't know if there's a UK equivalent. Like I don't know. Like
Davy Crockett. Well, all our stuff like Robin Hood and that is known of, and there have been like what Doctor Sin.
I don't know. I'm just imagining O'Brien and Bashir being really into, I don't know, one of the various war comics from like Action or Battle.
Yes, yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, I want to know more. I want to see the Special Boys Club uh Hollow Suite stuff. They
Oh,
are
oh,
so charmingly childish in
yeah,
that opening bit of like, yeah, it is very exciting, but no, you can't play with us. It's our special time.
it's like, you know, you're not you're not fooling anyone, guys.
I don't know. Maybe they're playing a Great Escape or something. You know.
See that one, you know, you can like I can see them being like really, instead of Davy Crockett bringing up like, I don't know, World War II stuff, like World
Definitely.
War II soldier stuff. But I don't know, it just kind of feels strangely. I don't know if it's out of place. It might just be it's one of those just cultural contexts that we don't get. So it
Yeah.
just so when it's being espoused by an Englishman and an Irishman, it just feels really weird.
It does. Yeah, it feels quite jarring. But yeah, who knows? Maybe when films and things were happening, there was some Davy Crockett film that took the world by storm or
Yeah,
something
maybe,
in that world.
maybe like just because they're at war, like the federate, like people and stuff in the Federation go, all right, we have to stop doing Shakespeare plays and jazz. We just kind of have to relearn what like war is like.
Yeah, or you know, with the whole oh yes, well it's a frontier in space, you know, the final frontier and that. Maybe frontier stories got kind of revisited in a kind of
Do you think they've rebooted Rawhide in space?
well, I mean, for any of these things, just make them a lot less problematic.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this one, I think it's probably my preferred out of the evening, to be honest. Like, as much as I love Jadzia Dax, this had a fun story, had some weird mechanics. While it kind of flubbed it a bit with the motive, um, it was good fun. Like the interaction between Ezri and Joran was entertaining, even if his rap sheet was way lower than he'd want everyone to think it was. You know, he wants to be Hannibal Lecter or maybe the Jokerman, but he is neither of these things.
He's not even like the guy from the Brad Dourif from Meld,
No,
who
God,
who
he is
is like
nothing.
a creepy moist serial killer. That said, Chulak might be the most moist Vulcan we've ever seen on the show. Because the moment he walks into the lift with Ezri, you almost expect him to shout out, "I'm the killer!"
Oh God, he is. Yeah, there is no way he is not the killer. Okay, so actually, thinking of murderers,
See,
Mel.
I was looking at Mel, which is number 35.
Yeah, yeah. Which again is a lovely character piece with Tuvok and Brad Dourif. Like these are both very good interactions between a Starfleet person and a murderer.
I think Meld. I think Meld is better
I mean,
because you get the sense that like Tuvok could actually just go off the reservation. That he could actually kill someone. Whereas I don't know. It feels like with this episode, even though you've got Joran going, why did you kill them? Kill them with this butter knife, which, she tries to stab someone with a butter knife, basically. It looks like one.
Oh, it's great.
At no point do you think Ezri's actually going to do it.
No.
Even with DS9 being the darker show, at no point that Ezri is going to blow the guy away.
Yeah, she seems fairly kind of nice and a little naive, but yeah, not really likely to become a serial murderer if anyone asks, even though it was only 3 people. Yeah, as good as DeBoer and McCloskey are, they aren't a Russ and a Durif. So yeah,
No.
yeah. Okay. So, let's see. What else have we got around here? And speaking of frontiers, in 39, there's North Star for Enterprise.
I'm gonna. This is gonna sound strange to say. I think that episode of Enterprise is better than this episode of DS9.
Yeah.
Like, as much like I feel again, whenever we have good Enterprise, it feels like it should get like 2 stars instead of just the 1, because it's like it's
cherish it a little more.
It's like the Ralph Wiggum of like you did well.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see some other ones with some murderers. We've got Heart of Glory, where Worf meets some actual Klingons who want him to do murders and take over the ship, only for them to die not necessarily even all that honorably. I think this might be a bit better than that.
Yeah.
You got that bonus of the late season actors being a lot more in their skin. The interaction between Worf and his Klingon mates never quite feels as fleshed out as Ezri and Joran.
It feels the same way. Like Worf's not going to betray the Enterprise to the Klingons. Ezri's not going to pull the trigger. I feel like this one is slightly better than Heart of Glory. Although Heart of Glory does have that great shot of the Klingon falling through the glass floor.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that because it is so good.
That said, we at no point did we mention like the weird, trippy dream sequence when it kind of goes into like definitely someone mucking about with some video editing.
Oh yeah, they try some stuff. It's not great, but they try.
They try.
Yeah, and in a show like Star Trek, which especially in the Berman Braga kind of era feels like it can be a little static at times. When someone tries some bullshit, you've got to give them some credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so probably under Errand of Mercy, given that's your first ever Klingon sort of thing.
Errand of Mercy is just so much, it has a fantasy castle.
It does. Gotta love a fancy castle.
And, you gotta love Kor's incredibly charming belief that he is both Kirk's, arch rival and both his BFF.
First him, and then later on Khan will fall for that as well.
Yeah.
Too many space baddies reckon that they are Kirk's one true nemesis.
So I think Joran kind of fits in nicely here because he thinks he is God's gift to murder.
Yeah, and he ain't that. Okay, so that puts this as the new number 43. Yeah, this was good fun. I know some of these didn't necessarily rank massively high, but yeah, it's been a good time.
That is gonna happen. Not every episode we're gonna watch is going to be in the top 20. Sometimes there are just some which is like, yeah, this kind of just easily just kind of skids in at the new number 43.
Yeah. And skidding into number 43. Oh no, it's just 44, damn it. Oh, yeah. So, episode 44 is over now, and that's it for us. Miles, what are we doing next time?
Well, we're actually going to do an episode about everyone's favorite omnipotent space trickster judge, Q.
Okay. I'm sure it'll be perfectly normal, and there'll be no wacky shenanigans.
No wacky shenanigans. Although, let's be honest, we're probably going to be back for DS9 with the next episode. Unfortunately, that does mean we're probably going to do one of the Q Voyager episodes, and
yeah. Well, there's always Picard.
Anyway, so Voyager episodes.
And in the meantime, if you want to be like Ben and get an episode constructed around a theme of your choice, then visit our Ko-fi. If you want to get any updates or general blathering about Star Trek from us, we have a Blue Sky. Miles, where can people find you?
People can find me on my blog at mareedlobato.wordpress.com or my Blue Sky at milesreedlobato.social.bsky.social. I am now 2 free weeks Twitter free.
Good work. Those first few weeks are, as someone that gets very easily compelled to keep scrolling with those kind of things, they're difficult, but soon enough it will seem like it's never been a thing.
Yeah, it's been like it's like, hey, you should check Twitter, see what people are outraged about, or I could not.
Yeah, I am also no longer on Twitter. I have an account there, but whatever.
But our accounts remain open just so Elon doesn't get them.
Yes. So you can find me on Blue Sky at skyshark.bsky.social and at faketales.com, where I have very recently posted a blog post about 2000 AD issues, as I'm 100 issues into reading all of 2000 AD. And as a little bonus, and because it's how my mind works, I've even put a little RPG suggestion after each one of what might be an RPG where you can have a similar thematic experience. So, that's it from us. So go do a Starfleet and try not to do any murders.
Live long and do a murder.
Oh no!
That's right, do a murder! Ooh.
Oh god, no voice in my head! Not again!
Ooh, murder! It'll make you feel really good and make your hair grow back. Do a murder.
Wow.
Do a murder.
You know what, Miles? I could murder a jelly baby.
You know what? Go murder a jelly baby.
Hooray! You have been listening to Casual Trek, a Nerd and High podcast, presented by Charlie Etheridge Nunn and Miles Reed Lobato. Music by Alfred Etheridge Nunn. Star Trek by Paramount. Not us. Not yet.